What strange fact do you know only because of your job? Part 2. I teach about the Holocaust and the Nazi concentration and death camps. When Auschwitz was liberated, 7 tons of human hair was found bundled in sacks. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that the hair had been sheared from the heads of women after they were killed in the gas chambers. Documents were also found that led to the factory where the hair had been destined. Another 2 tons of hair was found at the factory, as well as the hair cloth the hair was being turned into. Due to the shortages in textiles, the Nazis were selling the hair to factories so that lining for clothes and upholstery for vehicles could be made in secret. The hair was also used as stuffing in mattresses. Nobody outside the camps and factories was supposed to know this was being done. Oh, and not to forget about all the hair being on display in Auschwitz now, plus a ton of other personal belongings the prisoners had with them when they arrived. A person on their deathbed will occasionally stop breathing for upwards of a minute, only to start again. Maybe not strange, but it sure scared the hell out of me the first time I was sitting vigil over someone. I work in an old folks' home. That would be terrifying. Any idea why that is? I don't actually. It occurs as death draws near, so I assume it could be related to the body shutting down. But I have no real facts to back that up. All I know is to contact the nurse if someone stops breathing and starts again. Some people with schizophrenia, when experiencing an acute psychotic episode after experiencing hypersexuality at the same time. Related story, the smoking area outside the psych ward is a great place to pick up women. Land surveyor. Most people don't know where their property ends. They just assume based on fences and streets. This is made worse when people don't understand what the public work right of way is. I'm downstream of your property surveys and work in property records. There is a fairly decent chance someone can produce a document showing they have a legitimate claim for owning your land. Modern surveys are wonderful, but old survey Civil War era records that weren't all that well kept and government giveaways of land means someone could show up with a big surprise for you one day. Title insurance is mandatory for a good reason. I work at a school. 75% of the children that go to my school are from absentee mother households. 75% out of 900 kids, single fathers. There's an interesting theory that single parent households contribute to a lot of societal issues down the road. I don't subscribe to either the mother or father being absent as taking precedent over one or the other, but I truly think that kids need the duality of having 2 different yet partnered parents to raise them properly. I don't know, food for thought. Surgeons are called to remove body bits, not even parts, from the mechanical parts of trains after fatalities. Wouldn't you keep your fingers open? Well, if you wave to someone, of course, but if you want to signal that you wanted to talk to you normally, keep a fist and only raise your pointing finger. Less chance of getting a false picture taken. The German military doesn't take chances when it's about Nazis. People who were part of a right-wing party weren't allowed to come to the military. We once had at our base the thing that someone had a swastika wallpaper in his room, which led to control of every single housing unit by military police to see if someone else had the same thing. A lot of people don't realize that renting an apartment requires signing a legal binding document. I always thought it was common sense, but the amount of people that show up to my office expecting to pick up keys without ever signing the lease or trying to move out when they have 6 months left of their lease and getting upset when they realize there's financial consequences is astounding to me. These are all people over the age of 18. It's a strange fact about people that are somehow independent enough to live on their own. They aren't really. School doesn't teach finances or even basic contract law. Parents don't either. Out on your own, an adult without the tools to operate as such. Steakhouse restaurants generally make less than $1 on a dry-aged steak that costs $50 when you factor in the cooking, gas, labor, and recooks due to server guest error. They usually make more than 50% of their money on the booze. It's like a movie theater and popcorn. Now I kind of feel bad that I love to eat meat but I don't drink alcohol. Texas has 65 public water systems and the same levels or worse of contaminated that Flint, Michigan. The epoch time reference used by Microsoft Excel is very different compared to any other Linux, Unix, Windows server system. And yet, if you ever had to do any work with any time values in Excel, you switch to 1904 mode, because for some stupid reason, 1900 has no idea what to do with the negative time, but 1904 does. The picture of toothpaste on a toothbrush in a toothpaste ad is called a nurdle. Inside a lot of people's drywalls is a construction worker's lunch wrapper. I always try to write notes or jokes on drywall after installing cabinetry. I try to remember to toss in a newspaper before drywall install, but I've only done it a few times. It's always so cool coming across a little scrap of a past time when demoing. I work in the EMS billing. It's perfectly normal for EMS companies to have only 1 in 10 or 20 uninsured people pay their bill. I know of at least one client of ours that has a 1 in 40 payment rate. Oh man, that is super frustrating for me. On the one hand, I want everyone who needs a ride to the hospital to get one. On the other hand, if they don't pay their bills, I don't get paid. Running an ALS ambulance isn't cheap. But I'm not allowed to tell someone that you don't need an ambulance ride or we won't take you to the ER. We had a dude who was under 30 call for an ambulance over 230 times in a year for anxiety. We brought him into the ER most of the time because we can't tell him no. Most of those bills didn't get paid, but that cost gets factored into the budget and passed on to the average person. Schizophrenics are statistically more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Aren't people in general more likely to be victims than perpetrators? I suspect more people were victimized once than were violent once. True. This focuses more on the perception that crazy people are violent. There is an old man in California that runs 3 times a week and has a healthy sex life. Thanks for the resume summary, Glenn, but we are moving forward with additional candidates at this time. Would you have hired him if he had an unhealthy sex life? I'm looking for tips. Tip: only put comments about your sex life in the awards or achievement section of your resume. In your car, most modern vehicles, they use what's called a rack and pinion system that gives you power steering to turn your wheels. In most large trucks or heavy-duty trucks, F-350, Dodge, Ram, Cummins, so on, use what's called a steering box setup, which gives power steering to turn the wheels. To give you the power steering assist, a valve moves in whatever which way to direct the power steering fluid to give you power steering. That valve moves by 0.003 inches, 3/1000ths of an inch, or 0.0762 millimeters. A valve needs to move less than the width of your hair for you to turn your 300-pound vehicle with ease. Now some cars are using electric power steering. The steering wheel is only attached to a sensor that tells the motor what direction to go. The metal that makes up a space shuttle rocket satellite has to go through heat treatments, where it's basically brought to a screaming hot temp of almost melted, then plunged into a nitrogen bath of freezing temperatures. It goes through this process multiple times over days and weeks. Every type and combo of metals has its own specific temp needs to be treated to before it's signed off as ready. The process simulates what happens in takeoff, frozen outer space, flying back through the atmosphere. When you see Star Trek, it's mind-boggling to imagine every single piece of metal on all of those ships had to go through that process. It's a lot easier when you can replicate the raw stock to extract molecule specifications. I work for a big box retailer. In most retail stores, theft is referred to as shrink, and all store brand products at any store are usually sold to customers at huge markups for their cost. The latter is what employees can get the items for. I once bought something for $8 on employee pricing that would have cost a customer $50. I used to work at Circuit City. Our employee discount was that we could get stuff at cost, which was incredible. We had access to the cost price of everything in the store. I couldn't convince one of my co-workers that our computers were being sold at our below cost. Why do you think they give us a sales quota for accessories and warranties? I used to buy $15 USB cables for $3. The garbage inkjet printers cost like $20. It was literally cheaper to buy another printer than to replace the starter ink cartridge. Your brain beats along with your heart. It obviously doesn't push blood around the body, but it pulses along with every heartbeat in a visible manner. Is that why my head beats along with my heart so loud it feels like when I have a massive headache? Maybe it's the other way around. You might have high blood pressure, which you can hear and which can lead to massive headaches. Source: happened to me. Had high blood pressure, 22/110 at rest, which resulted in cluster migraines. Thank goodness for medication. I know all the best places to poop in downtown Atlanta. Hint, Marriott in downtown, only public restroom that I can actually say is maybe better than home. I can see it from my office now. I might drop some kids off at the Marriott pool later today instead of fouling up my office bathroom, which is a desk away from the new cute girl. Really shop around when looking to buy insurance, because it seems like a lot of agents are pretending to know what they're doing, and sometimes the lack of knowledge is frightening. On the flip side, my fallback job has escalated from barista to insurance salesman. It's all about digging for the right answers, IMO. I sell insurance, and sometimes, there's questions I don't know the answer to, but the important thing is to always find the right answer. My dad is currently being conned by his insurance company. More important, the broker he bought his insurance from. Humans and giraffes possess the same number of neck bones, 7 vertebrae. The mind boggles. All animals pretty much have the same skeleton, just with variations. Whales will also have the same number of vertebrae as a mouse, giraffe, and human.